Hey everybody, good morning. Guy Fredman here. Thought I'd start you off with a nice little view of the Pacific. It's morning time here in San Diego, and I'd like to make you another little pep talk here. Yesterday in the pep talk, talked about responsibility and the ability to take action in life, and where people don't take responsibilities where they can. Today I want to talk to you about kind of parlay and build off of that with a conversation about the two F's that are stopping everybody. And these two F's are fear and failure, right? These are like the devastating words in our society that nobody seems to be able to overcome. And I want to talk to you about the power of language. And I'm not a very religious person, but I would consider myself highly spiritual, and we can debate that all day long, and I don't intend to. But what I do want to offer you is that the first words in the Bible are, and God spoke, right? And I interpret that as reality came into being with word. So meaning that there was no reality before there was word. And we can look at this throughout our society and prove it. Give you an example. For instance, if you look at, first let's look at the power of language, right? Power is intended to create distinctions, meaning one thing distinct from another. So for instance, if you've read Helen Keller's book, you know that she describes her life prior to language as kind of being this like amorphous blob. Like there's no world. She was just kind of being, and it was this kind of very empty sensation, kind of like an everything nothing type of sensation. And then they taught her language through touch because she was deaf, dumb, and blind, for those of you who don't know who Helen Keller is. And she says something along the lines of, when the first word came in, the world came in. So when they taught her the first word, she suddenly understood sky, she understood trees, she understood life and air and water and all these different things. Like the whole world came into being at one time. In Freudian terms, with babies, they have a thing called the mirror stage. And the mirror stage is what a baby experiences around the age of 18 months of age. And what that means is it's a moment where the baby can look into the mirror and see itself distinct from its mother. Because up until that point, the baby has no distinction between itself and mother, and actually experiences the entity as one, literally as one, in singularity. When we say the word "we are one," that's actually what we mean. We do come from one. Language creates distinctions like black, white, countries, different things, right? This is how we distinguish things from one another. Years ago, Morgan Freeman did an interview on 60 Minutes where they asked him about Black History Month. I still see people posting it once in a while, and they often say, like, this is simple and brilliant, but I don't think they really understand the power of what he's saying in that video. He's asked about racism and about Black History Month, and he gets very offended and tells the guy that he doesn't want Black History Month. And the interviewer is very taken back by the crassness of his response. And he says, well, what about racism? And Morgan simply says, stop talking about it. Meaning that we are self-generating our reality through word, and because we don't stop talking about racism, we have the experience of it all the time. Mother Teresa said things like, if you invite me to a anti-war rally, I won't come, but if you invite me to a pro-peace rally, I will, because again, she understands the power of word. And this is a really important concept, this last one that I was just mentioning with Mother Teresa, because there's a simple spiritual concept that many of you have heard and some of you have not, called whatever you resist persists. So what do I mean by that? I do this demo with a lot of people, and I say, please put up your hand, right? And I just say, put up your hand. And then I touch my hand to theirs, and I start pushing lightly. And what immediately happens is the person pushes back with equal and opposite force. Now, I never ask anybody ever to push back on me. I just say, put up your hand. Yet everybody pushes back. So what does that tell you? Is that we are built for natural resistance. We're like resistors in life. And life is coming at you, just like this hand was coming at them, right? And then there's a natural resistance. And it's literally this action of holding your hand up against the other hand that keeps that other hand in place. Should you just move your hand, the other hand would just fall through, right? And when we say choose the path of least resistance in spiritual terms, that's what we mean. It means surrender to this moment. It doesn't mean like give up and fall over and die. It means just accept the moment as it is, and that's where you can surrender, and that's where resistance stops and things start flowing past you. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that concept in just a minute. But what I want to tell you is that fear and failure are distinctions in language. And they have particular definitions that cause a particular response in the body and give you the inability to act in the face of them, right? Now, most people that I've met when dealing with fear and or failure are trying to defeat them. They are trying to become some entity that no longer feels fear, no longer feels failure. This is an impossibility, not possible. These mechanisms that we call fear and failure, that we describe as mechanisms, are literally built into your DNA for your survival. And should you stop being afraid, right, then you'd go stand in the middle of the street, you'd see a car, you'd get really excited, you'd try to give it a hug, it would hit you and it would kill you. Fear is good. It moves you out of the way. It's a thing that tells you to tumble out of the way should a car be barreling down at you. And it's also the thing that tells you, remove your hand off that hot stove, it's burning. Fear is effective for saving your life, and it's gotten you this far. Now, where it's ineffective is in social situations, like wanting to walk across the room and say hi to a beautiful woman, or going to ask for a promotion, or starting a business, or taking any sort of risk. It occurs the same way. It occurs as a death type of situation, again, like a knife coming at your face, and this is just not true. None of that is actually happening. So many people want to become fearless, which is, I'm telling you, a pretty uphill battle because you just can't do it. It's built into the mechanism. You'd be dead if you were fearless. What you do want to work on is your courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to act in the face of fear. It's what firemen do when the building is on fire. Everybody else is afraid and runs out. Firemen built up courage and the capacity to take action in the face of their fear, and they run towards the fire, right? So again, fear is a distinction inside of language. And when we say that word, it creates a world for you, like it did for Helen Keller. So if you were to walk into a room, for instance, and you didn't have the distinction chair, you would look at that object and you would have no idea what you were looking at. You would literally just look at it and just be like, I don't know, totally baffled. But when you say the word chair, it doesn't just describe object. There's a whole paradigm there around chair, that you can sit in it, you can stand from it, you can move it, you can throw it, you can break it, you can do all sorts of things. It describes chair. They say that when Columbus was sailing towards the New World, the Indians were standing there at the ocean, like standing at the shoreline, looking at the ocean, seeing ripples in the water, but had an inability to see the ships actually coming at them and were therefore surprised. Another really interesting scientific study that was done was that they would take color palettes of all different types of shades of colors, like a blue, and they'd put it up against the wall. I think there are like 35 different colors, shades of blue. And they would ask people of different descents, different countries, to come sit down and identify how many colors they can see. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the people in America could see roughly somewhere between 16 to 18 colors on this color palette. And then people from Russia would sit down and be able to identify closer to 30 or 32 of them. And the reason for that is that in Russian, they have a lot more descriptive language for colors, and therefore the human eye can literally identify more colors. The Americans simply could not see the colors. So what does that tell you about the function of reality and word in terms of your relationship to fear and failure, right? We are giving them certain descriptors, and that's creating an experience in reality that is actually not real at all. It just has to do with the way that you're describing it. So where you're at power with these things is by taking a moment and authentically saying to yourself, what's my definition of fear and failure? And then, guys, it's your choice. It's your right to redefine those words for yourself. Because if you are unwilling to be fearful, and if you are unwilling to be failure, and you want growth in your life, those two things just don't go together at all. They just don't. And if there's anything I've learned from coaching people for 13 years, thousands of people, is that everybody more or less wants the same thing. People want freedom. They want magic. They want self-expression. They want to feel power in their life. They want to feel powerless, right? And if I was to ask you, when's the last time you conquered a fear? Whether it was like going skydiving, or you just did something in general that, you normally wouldn't do. I ask you, how did you feel at the end of that? Did you feel magic and power and self-expression and all those things. You know, that line, like, dance like no one's watching and all that kind of crap. That's what it's pointing to. It's what it's alluding to. It's like, deal with your fear, right? Break through, break through. So if you feel that way after being fearful, that should give you an insight into how to live a life that has magic, power, self-expression, freedom, all those things. You have to act in the face of fear. Now, many people make decisions, and I made a distinction about that yesterday, what it means to decide. I don't know many people who know how to choose. I know a lot of people that are deciding, and they're deciding based on circumstances. And those circumstances are usually, those decisions comes in moments of trauma where they're upset and they're making really bad decisions about the way that life is that harm them for the rest of their life. And the moment you decide, it's like putting on a pair of sunglasses that has a shade, and you can notice that shade when the glasses first come on, maybe. But a few minutes later, that shade just disappears and just becomes the way reality is. Guys, these decisions you've made about yourself are like those pair of sunglasses that you forgot you put on. And you also have the option to take them off. And that's what fear does. It puts on a lot of pairs of sunglasses, and it alters the shade of your world, the way that you view the world. So when you go make a decision, you'll notice that there's two conversations happening in your body, right? There's the mind that's speaking through fear, because that's what it does. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to create survival circumstances. It wants to be comfortable. The body speaks through pain, but it also speaks through like intuition, right? You can say like your intuition is what your body language is. So if you ever bought like a good looking car, like you go to buy an S-Class or Mercedes-Benz or something, and you get into the dealership and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy that car. Right? And then the mind kicks in and rationalizes a decision by saying, well, it gets really good gas mileage and it's going to be safe for the kids. You think that second thing made the decision? Absolutely not, right? The intuition is what's pulling you in that direction. So notice how that phenomenon works, because you're being guided towards something, and then the mind kicks in and there's fear there. And it's always going to be that way. But that should be like an aha moment for a lot of you guys. Guys, fear is not something to run away from. Fear is showing you where your intuition is trying to pull you towards. So if you want a life of magic, power, freedom, self-expression, all these things that everybody seems to want, you have to move towards your fear. It is literally like guiding posts, like guiding lights, taking you to where you want to go. And this is why many people just don't create the lives that they want, because they have an inability to move towards fear. They are the person running out of the burning building instead of the person running into the burning building. You have an absence of courage, not a surplus of fear. And you can build up the capacity to do that. So I was talking about resistance before, and what you resist persists. And this is the last little thing I'm going to tell you. And this took me about 13 years, a lot of ayahuasca, meditation, landmark, all these different things to figure out, because I've known about resistance and persistence for a long time. But you could say what you push against is what you resist and what you don't want. But here's what else I've learned. If I hold you over here by your collar and I say like, I want this, right? So there's two parts of life. There's things we don't want, there's things that we want. And the things that we want, we reach out for and we grab them like this. And then we try to hang on to them for as long as humanly possible. Now, if I hold you by the collar and you try to get away, you can't, right? You cannot. This is just another form of resistance, just like pushing it. No different. And both of them will eventually cause misery, because it just keeps things in place. So when we say the pursuit of happiness, we're saying, here are the things that I want that make me happy, and I'm going to hold on to them. But this is making you fucking miserable. And like everything else in this world, even though we have distinctions for it, they're really arising together. And they have a relationship to one another. So this, holding on to, has the same relationship as this, what I'm resisting. There's no difference there. So when you let go and you stop resisting, right? You stop this and you let the thing fall through, you get something that you probably desire more. And then you try to hang on to it. But then this doesn't look the way you think that it should, so you get upset. So you go back to resisting. And it's this ping pong match that endlessly goes back and forth and doesn't stop. And it's making you fucking miserable. So what I'm offering you is let go of both. Let go of the pursuit of happiness. And it's not to say that not to be happy. Just let go of the pursuit. You want to be happy? You know what the secret is? Be happy. It's a way of being. That's all it is. It's not circumstantial. Nothing's going to happen in your life that's going to give you endless happiness and joy. It's just being happy. That's the choice. I know it's so simple and no one wants to get it because it's that simple. You think you have to work for it and labor for it and slave for it. It's all a lie. So what I offer you is let go of this, right? Let go of that one. Pursue joy the way you pursue depression, which is to say, don't. Stop creating these amalgamations in your fucking life that are literally making you miserable. And you will find that there's this path down the middle. For those of you guys who are the Tao Te Ching, that's what they're describing in there, is the path between those two, right? You can have aversions or you can have cravings. Buddhism is very clear that that's where misery comes from. The same exact thing. Give up craving. Give up aversions. Stop resisting. Stop trying to hang on to everything. Just be with what is. The fear is going to have you resist. The failure is going to have you resist and hang on. Guys, you can redefine these things. These are things to move towards. You should get excited when you're failing. You should be excited when you're fearful. It just depends on how you're listening to that distinction at that time. Recreate these distinctions. They're nothing to be afraid of. They do not kill. They will not hurt you. You can have whatever you want in life, but you have to move towards the 2 F's, and they will give you the experiences necessary to create the life that you say that you want. One of magic, purpose, self-expression, power, and freedom. Hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I love you. Have a great day.